Well, good evening, everybody, or good morning from Australia. This is Turfchat Australia, Episode 2, Education. We've got a little different studio feel going here. We've kind of upped our game, bringing you a little studio look here. We've got everybody. I welcome everybody here on the right, which they'll introduce themselves in a minute. My name is Bill Brown from Turf Republic. And like I said, we're starting off episode 2 of Turf Chat Australia. We got a great topic tonight. We're talking about education, the education in Australia, public versus private education, how education is different in the States versus Australia. And then we're going to kind of wrap things up. You guys just had your 29th annual Australia Turfgrass Conference. You've got some conferences coming up, and we'll go from there. So let's start things off here. We'll start with introductions, and Bruce, go ahead and start us off.
All right, thanks for that, Bill. Yeah, so it's Bruce Davies. I'm at Canberra Institute of Technology, and we're involved in turf management training, primarily with apprentices we look after sort of the lower part of New South Wales. I'm also a long-term member and current chair of the National Turf Education Working Group, who look at quality of education in turf across the country, and also long-term members of the local turf STA, Sports Turf Association. Over to you, Frank.
Right, Frank Dempsey, former head teacher of turf management at Ryde College in Sydney, the largest college in Australia, basically also sort of founder of the National Turf Working Group. I'm keen to listen to what the other guys have got to say. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, good morning and good afternoon. I'm the course superintendent at Linwood Country Club in Sydney, Australia. And this is, I was on the first episode, now on the second episode, so enjoying this process. Over to you, Bill.
Yeah, g'day everyone. I'm the Dame from Colin Campbell Chemicals in Sydney. We're a manufacturer and distributor in Australia of turf products, turf protection products, and also horticulture products. But it's my second episode as well. So we got through the hard one, the first one, and now we're on to the second one. And hopefully this is again the second of many to come. And I'll pass over to Bill, and we may have a few others joining us as we go along.
All right, very good. So tonight we want to talk about education, and I was talking with Nadeem a little bit on how we were going to kind of deal with education in the States versus Australia, and talking to Nadeem from a public versus a private standpoint in Australia, there is a significant difference in educational quality. In the States, public versus private really gets down to cost. If you're at a state school like a Penn State, or if you're at a private school, it really comes down to cost for in-house residents, out-of-state residents. But in Australia, Nadeem was explaining to me that the quality of education is, Nadeem, I don't know if you would say significantly different or just different, but I will hand it over to you, Nadeem, and why don't you start us off there?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Bill. Yeah, pretty much there is quite a bit of difference between public and private education in Australia, and there is quite a bit of a difference between the US system and the Australian system. When this topic first came about, I was talking to Martin up at I think it was just at the actual conference or just after the conference. He said, I think we really should have a turf chatter in regards to Australia in regards to turf education. So I said, look, why not? Let's do it. So here we are about a month later. So Martin, look, I'll pass on to you here and actually explain what's been going on lately, because you're part of the education group as well, and being the president of the New South Wales Golf Course Supers. Please explain what's out there and what we need to do.
Yeah, well, what we're dealing with on a national side of things at the moment is that governments are sort of trying to readjust their monies and where they're distributing money throughout the education process. So in Australia, we have what's termed licensed trades, and they're plumbers, electricians, gas fitters, all those things that can cause major problems, in the household or anything like that. Now, greenkeeping or turf management is seen as a trade, but not a licensed trade. So what they're trying to move their money around and move it into the licensed trade and get more people doing this, because in Australia on a national level we're losing, these important trades. So by allowing these grants and everything like that, what they're now looking at is bringing in private enterprise to take over a lot of the training that's out in the industries, which means that what we call an RTO and TAFE, which is a government-funded RTO or registered training organisation, they have been the leaders for quite some time in Australia and training everybody. Where the private RTOs now come into workplace and will assess whether or not a person is up to speed on certain jobs, and then they will pass off on that, and the superintendent has an involvement in that. Now, whether this is a positive thing for our industry or not, we're not 100% sure on where we're headed and whether it's going to be a downgrade of education or, being a competitive edge with RTOs, whether it'll increase the quality of guys coming into the industry. So that's where we're sort of at it with it at the moment. I know that with the government will keep what we call the trade certificate or the certificate 3 level in Australia. They will keep the funding for that. In New South Wales, we have Mal Harris, who's the education officer for us, who's fighting quite hard to keep what we call certificate 4 or that next level of training from trade, keep the government funding. So when I say we're keeping government funding, we're seeing a course that's roughly in around $1,200 to $1,500 a year for a more or less a 18-month course, which may blow out to about a $10,000 figure that an individual will have to pay himself. So it creates a bit of concern for the industry as a whole on the quality of guys who are coming into it. And personally, my own view is, will this lead guys to go maybe to the States and do the Ohio course? And that seems to be a big influence at the moment. And that's my personal view. That's not the state view. That's my view. And I think guys are finding a lot more benefit in doing the Ohio course. So, I mean, I'll hand over to Frank, and he can give you a sort of further detail on what's going on there.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I think one of the major differences between the education in the United States and to what we have in Australia is that we start from grassroots level and train from the grassroots level, right from sort of skills on mowing and skills on aeration and skills on fertilising, weed pest disease management, that sort of fundamental skills. And then we work up from that level up to City 4, which is basically second in charge skills, up to diploma, which is management skills, and then up to degree undergraduate courses at university, which Sydney University will run for the last couple of years. That's where we are. One of the problems is that the apprenticeship system, we base our apprenticeship system the same as the traditional United Kingdom system. So it's 4 years training as an apprentice, and of that 3 years is a registered training college like TAFE, and that's at 1 day a week. So you release the apprentice 1 day a week to be trained at a college. One of the problems is that the reduction in funding over the years, there's pressure on both state governments and federal government to reduce their costs, and unfortunately it's coming down to TAFE. At the moment they're talking about funding to with a skills list. They're talking about keeping that funding to a skills list, which will include the trade courses. However, I know the rumours are in New South Wales that from a traditional 3-year training, that training will be reduced from 3 years to who knows what, depending on the amount of funding you get. So I think it's going to be a core loss because the superintendents really don't have enough time to train. A lot of private providers, if somebody can mow on 1 day, and that's the fundamental part of their training. So I don't know that there's any long-term benefit. So I think we're sort of in a rock and hard place regarding trade funding. But my real worry is what happens after trade, because that's where the big bucks are going to come in. You can go and get a university degree, an ag science degree in Australia, which will cost you around $60,000. That's for a person who's not earning that money that much a year. So it's going to take you more than a year's salary to actually pay that money. So I think that's a major worry for us. But I think that's what you think, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks for that, Frank. Look, I'd have to agree with both Martin and Frank. The concern I see in turf education in Australia is it's really about the quality. It doesn't matter where those funds come from and who's doing the training, but it is about quality. And certainly we've had a difference between private RTOs and the TAFE system over the last couple of years, and really the National Turf Education Working Group set up to try and make sure that quality was the emphasis, and I think it's been reasonably efficient at that. We're now, with a number of state governments being under economic pressure, we're finding that a lot of the TAFE training in different states is now being pushed towards reduction in costs, and once again we're starting to be concerned about quality. Frank mentioned there that the standard apprenticeship program is 3 years at TAFE with 1 day a week, and then one year at the end of that, typically on job. We are finding that there are educational institutions, even on the TAFE side, that are looking at reducing those hours, and the concern then is that we're obviously reducing the quality of the students that or the turf managers that we're actually producing. This also comes on top of a definite reduction in the quality of students that we have coming through, and that's primarily the numeracy and literacy. As Martin mentioned, there's some pressures from other industries, and government is even targeting other industries at our expense to actually gain those good quality students. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's all about the real concern is the quality. Frank also mentioned the national skills needs list. It is really important that our industry make sure that they let those that are pulling the money strings know that we do have a requirement for quality students, because when people are taking on staff at all levels, not just at the apprenticeship level, if they don't actually advertise that, there's no way of that need actually being recorded. So there's a number of things that I think we can do as an industry. I see we've got, I don't know whether Rob can actually hear us now. I don't know whether he wants to... I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We got you, Rob.
Hallelujah.
You're on.
I'm actually on my phone, believe it or not.
So we do now know that the I know Jason had this question as well. Does the new iPad and the iPhone app Google Hangout actually now work with Live Hangout? So we've just proved it does.
The phone does, yeah.
Oh,
the iPad wouldn't. Beats the hell out of me.
So please, just, Robin, just introduce yourself quickly and the likes, and have a quick.
Okay, what have I missed? My name's Robin Dudson. I'm the superintendent here at beautiful Century Cove Golf Club on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. That's pretty much it, I guess. I've just become a director on the AGCSA board, which gives me a bit of interest, especially in this education part. It's certainly a hot topic around the country at the moment. It's a hot topic with me at the moment as well, because like having the same struggles as everyone else seems to be talking about.
So, in terms of education, it seems like from listening to you guys is that the onus on regulation is through the educational system. Am I correct to assume that? In terms of abiding by any type of government legislation, permitting, and all that appears to be on the the onus is on the education system. Is that correct?
I would say
Okay.
yes. I would say that it's dominated by following. You really can't go into any trade without having that qualification behind you. Now that is, as the history's been, it's been more or less directed at a educational thing that was funded by government to an extent. I mean, your employer still does pay for part of that process or that education to put people through. So it's sort of a two-way street. Now they're looking at probably passing it out to, like I said before, private enterprise.
Right. Well, in the States, in terms of education, you go to school to learn the science behind everything, and then once you're out, that education does not meet government, I guess, standards. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Like we have in each state, you have certified pesticide licenses, and it varies between state to state to state. There's not one state that's the same. Some states are more stringent than other states. Some states have separate licenses for fertility. Some states have no fertility licenses, and then we have to worry about again state I guess laws in terms of pollution, in terms of ordinances for building, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got to worry about federal legislation as well. But none of that, it's taught to us in our education system, but unlike yours where it's set up more like a trade, where when you leave this education and then it is assumed that you are now qualified to do your trade. That's a little different in the state. Once you get your education, you have to then go through receive all your licenses to do the various applications within golf course management. So it's a little bit different here.
Well, the way we sort of do it here is when we talk about this trade course, and you're talking about licenses for pesticides and all that type of stuff, we tend to work closely with the TAFE organisation, and TAFE's been great really over the years. Where if industry thinks that okay, we need to put in that trade course the pesticide applications and all that type of stuff, then the TAFE system worked closely and then would try and implement that as part of their syllabus. So as soon as the guys are coming out or getting towards the final part of their education of their trade course, they're coming up with pretty much most of the qualifications that are required. Now, might be different to what you deal with over there, but then it becomes part of the employee-employer thing where they have to renew it pretty much every 5 years.
Okay.
But really, the education process we take kicks it off and starts it. So that's where it's been great.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Sorry, Frank.
Okay. You go.
Well, I was just going to say, from my perspective, I've put probably a dozen apprentices through in the last 5 years, and I've actually had to move them from TAFE here close by in Brisbane. The last two apprentices I sent there, they were the only two students in the class, so we're actually sending them 3 hours down the road into New South Wales to do their TAFE training, which is a bit. My personal opinion is that the delivery of it's become a little bit outdated, and I think a lot more of it could be done online with a little bit and put a bit more responsibility back onto the superintendent to actually train their, because I feel a bit distant from their actual training. You really don't get too involved in what they're doing at TAFE. I suppose, it's up to us to take responsibility for that. But they do a good thing in the UK. BEGA have set up the Greenkeepers Training Council, which they've done for many years, where they do that Greenkeepers Training Manual, which is, I think they train them up to about a Cert 3 standard, basically on the job. which I think with modern technology, there's opportunity to take that to the next level, where a superintendent can really deliver a qualification almost themselves with a bit of help from TAFE and RTO, for example. And the other thing on RTO, I think we've been talking at the AGCSA about the AGCSA becoming an RTO. It seems that that might be a bit of an expensive process, and there might be an opportunity to pair up with PGA, who have already, for some number of years, been an RTO and are delivering essentially what is a management training course in golf, sports management, and we could probably just deliver a few additional subjects and take it on ourselves in partnership with the PGA. I think that's something we'll probably look towards, because the TAFE system's changing, and the TAFE system, it's not failing, but it's just becoming more difficult. And we really are, we're in the hands of the government, because without the funding, it's just becoming impossible. No one would ever do the apprenticeship without the funding.
Now, what? And then Frank, I know you had something to say. What do they teach them in this trade? Because in the States, we learn, the science behind turfgrass management. We don't. Academia does not teach anything about the equipment. How to run. I guess they teach. They don't specifically how to teach you. Teach you to run an irrigation system or actually get on a sprayer and spray. It's more just all classroom and the science behind things. So once they get out of school, they are, it's the onus is on the superintendent to train his guys how to use a sprayer, how to use the various irrigation systems, and all that. So what are they learning in this trade system that's required?
Can I speak on that?
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. Do you want to go, Bruce?
No, that's okay. You go first, Frank. I'll back you up.
All right. So basically, they learn the trade skills, and those trade skills start off with very basic stuff like safety in sort of starting and maintaining machinery, like basic stuff like whippersnippers and mowers and blowers and edges and those sort of things. And then they move up in their first year along their first year those basic skills. Then the second year they actually do construction work. They actually build a sports surface, and they do those. They learn about soils, they learn about consolidation, and they also learn about grasses and establishment. And then in the third year they do more sort of weed, pest, disease identification and control. So you see, there's that sort of skill building as you go through. The other thing too is that the actual quality of training that you receive is a direct relation to the funding you receive. So, for example, if a student, one of the key things you learn about students is that they need a lot of repetition. They need a lot of repetition as to like this is we're gonna use this machine today. We're going to assess you maybe next week. The week after that, we're going to use it as part of our another job that we're doing. So there's all this repetition taking place. If you only sort of walk onto a job and tick them and flick them, that skill will never be repeated unless you're actually repeating those skills on a regular basis. They'll be forgotten. So that's what we try to do over the 3 years, actually repeat those skills from a basic level up to second and third year, where they actually use them in a whole lot of different situations. So they actually, at the end of the third year, they're actually quite competent and understanding all the things they need to know. But getting back to the funding issue, one of the problem is that if somebody can walk onto a golf course and mow a golf green, and you say, well, teach them as being competent on that day. But the problem is that if they don't use that for a number of years, for example, doing something else, then those skills will be forgotten. So I think one of the problems that happened in Brisbane, and that's what you're talking now, they're going down to Wallenbach, that you were talking about up there at Sanctuary Cove. The problem with the funding in Brisbane was cut dramatically, and that's why that's why they ended up with such a poor result. So I think that there is the same thing will happen with the AGCSA and that model that you're talking about. It's a direct relation to funding, and I mean, yeah. So And I mean, well, we have guys that come to college and say they can operate a tractor, but when we actually they don't have to attend those classes because the super says they can operate that tractor. But when you actually come to assess them, they've got no idea as to the safety, the maintenance, any of that sort of stuff. Yeah. So you really need to have a really thorough outline of the building skills over those 3 years, and also the repetition of those things. And it needs to be structured because what you might think of the best operating procedure in Sanctuary Cove might be quite different from somebody in Canberra, for example.
For sure.
Yeah, but I'll hand over to Bruce to see what you want to say, Bruce.
Yeah, just getting back to the differences between the US system and our system, a really big strength of our system is that our apprentices at the Certificate 3 level are spending the majority of their time actually on jobs. So they come out, very practical, they can do everything across the golf course, from changing holes, using machinery, using spray equipment, etc. Whereas the US model, really they're getting the technical stuff up front, and to some extent some of them never get that real practical hands-on. So I think that's a real strength. I would agree with Robin that, and Frank to some extent, that the big issue, and certainly it is in the ACT, is not so much at our Certificate 3 level or our trade level. I think the big problem is as we move through to Certificate 4 and Diploma, and then ultimately even further on than that. We've lost our Sydney Uni have lost their turf management program in recent years, which is a bit of a problem, or definitely a problem. Using the Canberra example, we don't offer Certificate 4, I should say, and Diploma anymore because we just can't get the size, the population. What we tend to do is direct those people to pick up the turf management side of, for example, the Diploma through other TAFEs around the country that offer it by a distance mode. And I think that's the way it's going to go, and I think probably the AGCSA is going to have potentially a strong role in somehow pulling that all together. Using the technology like we're using now can obviously make it, we can be dealing with people that want that level of study and dealing with the best educators and also the best practitioners, so some of the guys we've got in front of us, to actually give some direction as part of that process. So, yeah, I think it's more at the higher level that we need to be particularly worried, although, as I said, it would be nice to have better quality students coming through at that Certificate 2 and Certificate 3 level. Does anybody want to add to that?
No, can only agree with that.
Yeah.
I'll add with what Robin was saying there in regards to the AGCSA and the PGA getting on board as an RTO, and I'm aware that the PGA is currently already an RTO. I think we're heading in the right direction in Australia as a national body anyway, for the fact that we'll hold on to Certificate 3, and in New South Wales we'll most probably hold on to Certificate 4, hopefully. And with the AGCSA and the PGA in Australia taking over that further education and that advancement from what we may lose in the diploma, and in regards to also the university degree that we had in Australia, I think we're heading in the right direction anyway. And I think, you know, my fears are pretty much alleviated by the talks that I've had in the recent weeks with all these bodies. So, but it comes from us as industry making sure that we push it through. And I think turf management has maybe lost a little bit of glamour, but I've got to say, with the advancements in the technology that's out there with Twitter and all these things now, and, you know, sitting back and watching Adam Gard's videos at Plum Hollow, you know, putting those things out as a major thing through Australia and showing what people are able to do out there, it just inspires you to go out there and do more. So, I mean, and it's an industry that's got to push it. We've got to make it glamorous. We've got to make it positive. And, you know, that's like people who was like Superintendent Royal Sydney used to do, John O'Dell, did great things in trying to promote the industry. So we have to keep that moving forward.
No, I think you're definitely right there, Martin. Just yes, like there's so much we can do with technology, but really we do have to showcase our industry to the rest of Australia and show what we do and how good we are. And because I look at it, it's like I've spoken to people, and people just see sometimes us as grass cutters, and I don't. I look at us as turf management. Turf management as scientists. There's a nice one of those pictures on Twitter that went around a while ago saying what your friends think you do, your pro thinks you do, your club think you do, and what we actually do. The amount of education that does go into turf management is far and beyond anything of a lot of other different industries. And I think if you're saying with the AGCSA and the PGA doing the training, I think one thing also we've got to bear in mind is it has to encompass all parts of turf management, golf, sports fields, bowling greens, and the likes like that, because essentially the basics, I always say to everyone, the basics are all the same. You do things differently, but essentially we're all trying to achieve the same result. So I'd like to see that, not forget the other side of our turf industry, the sports fields and the bowling green management.
Yeah, well, I think generally from the discussions I've had, I think the idea is to create essentially a diploma in sports turf management, which, as you say, will cover all streams of sports turf, but also as part of that, cover some of the people management skills and the finance management, which, some of us, we only really start getting our teeth into when we actually hit the top job, and there's not too much training in that until you need it. So try and cover off that stuff, because I think some of the young 2ICs at the moment, that's probably the gap in their skills at the moment, is just that additional management stuff, the formal management stuff.
So I guess I can kind of wrap up here now that it's very interesting listening to you guys talk about this, because it is a lot different in the States. I guess to kind of summarize the differences from the state side is you've got universities that offer 4-year turf programs, and like Robin, you had mentioned, my 4-year degree at Penn State. Geez, I want to say, probably 66 to 70 credits of the 128 that I needed were in just turf, and then the remaining were in finance, business, and then electives. I mean, U.S. history, you name it, art. I mean, I had a 3-hour art class one night. That was absolutely brutal, but it just rounds us a little bit more. And then you've got universities that offer, like Rutgers and Penn State, the 2-year certificates. And what that does is it puts the student in the field more, because it's a 2-year program, 2 semesters, so it's basically 4 semesters, 40 weeks. It's 10 weeks each semester, which puts them back on the golf course. It keeps them on the golf course later in the fall and puts them back on the golf course earlier in the spring. And I wish John Kaminsky was on here, because he could speak to some of the classes that are offered in that. But the students in that program are taught more in the field stuff, I'll call it. More equipment, more irrigation, more application. Where the 4-year program is more, it's just you come out a little different, because obviously you spend a lot more time in school. I guess the onus of training people is really left on the superintendent. That's why we try and make our own training videos, like you talked about, Adam. That's why we try and do all that, because there's nothing watching over us saying, when they come out of whatever university, they're going to know how to do all this. They're going to know how to grind a bed knife. They're going to know, they should know that blades are sharp and not stick your hand in it. But, you don't know that, That's left on the onus of the superintendent and the people on the property. So it is a lot different, very interesting hearing you guys talk about this, and we could probably talk, 3 or 4 hours. What I would like to do is try and get some professors in academia, Nadeem, and maybe kind of just spend specific time on the differences between the 2 programs. Get somebody like Cale Bigelow and Mike Fidanza, John Kaminsky, and I apologize for leaving anybody out, guys, if you're watching, but get those guys on, and then Bruce and Frank, have you back on and really talk about, because there are a lot of differences. It's amazing how you come out of school, how you come out of these schools in the different areas. So I guess moving forward, you guys just had your 29th annual Australia Turf Conference. Somebody want to talk about what went on there and kind of give that a roundup?
Yep. Robin, did
Who
you
wants
want
to go with that? Do you want me to go with
Robin,
that?
you're the brand new director.
Well, I'll give you a roundup of. It was hosted at Twin Waters Golf Club on the Sunshine Coast. Well, Twin Waters Resort. That's what we call, I guess, one of our regional conferences. We've historically been having one in a major city, and then in the off year having it in a regional centre. So this was our regional conference. I think running in, a few of the guys were a bit worried that it was going to be boring, I suppose, because it's a pretty remote location. But the feedback, and we sat and went through all the feedback from both delegates and trade last week. So we did an online survey, and I would say 95% was extremely positive. I think the trade guys, you might agree or disagree, Nadeem, got a lot out of it because the trade show was extremely busy because at all times, because everyone was there, and everyone seemed to get a lot out of it. It just had a really good atmosphere about it. From an education point of view, we had Tom Nicolai there, did our Monday workshops, which is a new, suppose, revelation that Jacobson have brought. We usually used to have our golf championships on a Monday, but now that's been taken over with a couple of workshops. So we're looking a few different things for that next year, but it went really well, I believe. And yeah, feedback went well, and financially it went very well. So the discussions we had last week were actually looking, because of the cost of having, and I suppose the risk involved in having conferences in the major cities, probably do a major city every 4 years instead of every second year. So I'll put that little bit of information out there virally and see what the feedback is. But I mean, I certainly seem to enjoy, personally, I enjoy the regional conferences more than going to the Melbournes and of the world. I don't know what the rest of you guys, Nadeem, you were there, Man, you were there. Don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, you know, it was good this year. Actually, I really did enjoy the turf conference. It was good. The trade show, from my point of view, it was good because everyone was all there in a smaller area, and saying that there was still a good 50 booths there for a regional conference, which I think was a great effort. And yeah, my feedback was very positive to the AGCSA. And Robin, if you actually did go through some of the individual surveys, you would have easily been able to pick up mine in terms of
utilizing.
Yeah, the technology and the
we went through the fine
social media side of things. I've got some more ideas for that I'd love to work with you next year on it.
We'll talk some more.
But yeah,
are you going to come to the launch in October, Nadeem?
I was looking at it, but it looks like I'm going to be on holidays at that time.
Okay,
unfortunately.
So the conference next year is going to be here on the Gold Coast, and the planning's going ahead. I think we're going to have the launch for that on October this year. I think, yeah, we're looking to obviously make it a little bigger and better than last year. It's Toro's 100th anniversary or something, so they're planning some big things. Our keynote speaker looks like it's going to be Carl Dannenberger, and we're looking at getting possibly possibly two sporting personalities. I think Toro have signed up Michael Clark, who Bill will not have a clue who that is. He's an Australian cricket captain, and possibly one other. So could be of interest next year. And I think the other thing we're looking in the future is one bit of feedback we got was there wasn't really any opportunity to see live demos of equipment. So it's certainly something we're going to try and plan in for the next. There's an opportunity next year to do that, and especially going forward. I think 2 years' time, we're looking at going to Darwin possibly. So the idea will be a pretty practical conference, and you'll be able to see everything working.
Very good.
Yeah, I got along to the conference from the Tuesday, and yeah, I thought it was great. I did like that it was a regional thing. You know, I liked that it was happening on a resort sort of where you were all in the one spot, didn't need to travel, etc. So yeah, I was pretty impressed.
One bit of feedback we got was that I don't know what you think, Nadeem, but the trade show was too far to walk. It was about 50 meters away.
It was. I think that that would have come from because at Sanctuary Cove, just to give everyone an idea, there was at Twin Waters, you could actually stay where Twin Waters was. But then if you actually stayed on the other hotel, which was the Mercure, it was a bit of a walk. I did hit the Simplot guys complaining quite a bit. the Simplot guys were complaining there from what I heard.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of blokes that need that walk.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, no, not far at all.
Anybody else have anything to add about the shows?
Really, no. They're always good. Ones I've been to, I've always enjoyed, and you always come away learning something.
Very good. I know, Nadeem, you had messaged us about GIS this year. Anybody else heading to GIS this year?
Hopefully, yeah.
We know. Robin, very good.
Yeah.
Very
I'd
good.
love to go. Turf Republic down to sponsor me.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
That means no.
Well, I know my wife and I would really we're trying to figure our time away. I've got 2 little boys, and we're trying to figure out. We would love to go down to one of your shows. That would be fantastic. I know my wife has been to Europe. The only place I've been out of the States besides Canada has been to on my honeymoon down to Cozumel, Mexico, and the Bahamas. So I'd love to get across the pond. It's a long flight for us, but I'd love to go. So very
More than
cool.
welcome.
We would love to have you there, Bill. You and Michael would love to have you two, come to Australia and show you around the place. And if it is, come to the conference at the Gold Coast. It's Robin's backyard, and come for the conference, but also come and stay for a little bit longer as well and show you around the place.
Very cool. Nadeem, we're looking. You gave us those. Not to get off topic here, but I guess to kind of keep it light. But those crackers you gave us, they were like chocolate and caramel that you bite the 2 ends off.
Tim Tams.
Oh
I took
man,
some Tim Tams over.
Crackers.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We didn't drink them through coffee or coffee, but it was fantastic. So, but all right. Anybody else have anything to kind of wrap up on episode 2 here?
Oh, Bill, if you could just mention the iTurf apps market. That's one thing we were going to go through.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna mention it in closing. I don't know if you want me to do that now, or anybody has anything else to wrap up with. I can certainly mention that.
Yeah, go for it.
Just one thing. Just finishing up on the education side of it. Just letting people know that have a look on the AGCSA site. We've got all of our delivery and assessment guides, which we've worked through the Certificate 2, Certificate 3, and Certificate 4 will go up later this year. Whenever there's people out there that are looking for turf education, use that as a standard. Make sure that the people that are giving you that education are actually doing it according to those delivery and assessment guides, because it's a make sure that we've got that national consistency and quality right across the system.
Yeah. I'd like to support Bruce on that. That was the reason we started those things, was to actually set standards. It's interesting that with the lack of funding in Brisbane, they had to move to a distance education system, and Rob went away from that, sent them back to a hands-on weekly attendance system.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wallenbar is a fantastic TAFE, and they've got a great program there at the moment.
But you see that my point I'm making is that the distance education in Brisbane, you sent them back to more hands-on education.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
What we'll have to do, Nadeem, you don't have to talk offline, but for everybody who watches this and listens, I've started some new iTunes podcasts. I've got the code written for them. iTunes is a little tricky at times, but we plan on putting these Turfchat Australias in the iTunes store, as something Nadeem and I talked about. And one thing we can do in the podcast maker that I'm using is I can set links, outbound links on these podcasts. So those education guidelines, Nadeem, if that's something you can shoot me links, I can insert that into the podcast, and I can to this. They can simply click on the device they're listening to the Turf Chat on, whether their iPhone, iPad, Android, on their computer, and it will link them away to this resource. So keep that in mind, guys, when we're doing this in the future. If there is something we're talking about, send me the links, and we can make sure that they are in the podcast, in iTunes, so people can access that resource. So I guess in closing on my end, and then I'll let you guys kind of go through just like we did our intros. You can close it out for us. Turf Republic site network consists of iTurf apps, turfdiseases.org, and soon we'll be making an official announcement of the Wives of Turf. But the iTurf apps, I founded back in 2009, and speaking all over the country and in Canada, I would take questions at the end, and people would always say, I just want a place where I can go to find the apps that are good for the turf industry, and maybe they're just not turf apps, but maybe something like Evernote or Notability or Sunseeker that wasn't specifically designed for the turf industry, but could be used in the turf industry. We want a spot where we can go find all these. So we released a couple weeks ago, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks now, the iTurf Apps Market. It's on iTurf Apps right on our homepage. You can also find it on Turf Republic. And it's basically an app store that you can go to and find apps that other superintendents are using. They're apps that we've endorsed at iTurf Apps that we think are good for the golf and turf operation, whether it be landscaping, sports turf, or the golf. And you can download them on there. You can read our reviews. The reviews and basically bottom lines are geared towards the turf industry. It's not the developer saying why they like their app and how they use their app. It's specifically geared toward the turf industry. The other nice thing is you can download the apps right from our app store. So if you're on a mobile device, you can just click on the app store logo, the Android Market logo, and you can download the app right from there. The other thing we like is, because we want it interactive, is give users the ability to create their own reviews. So if there's an app on there you guys use and you really like it, you can write your own review on there and help your peers out understand why apps are good, or maybe why apps are bad. Maybe there's an app we thought was good, and you think it stinks. Tell us about it and put your own rating system in there. So once it really gets up and running, we get a lot of reviews in there. It's going to provide such a great resource for everybody to learn, how we can start incorporating applications, mobile applications, into our daily routine. So. With that, guys, this was a great topic. Nadeem, I think down the road, and with your guys' help, we look to get some people in academia on board from the States, and we can really dig into this a little bit further to understand the differences here. So, Bruce, with that, if you want to close out, and we'll go down the line here.
Yeah, all right. Look, just thanks for allowing us to be involved, and I'm glad to see that there's a bit of talk going on re-education, because there is some major changes, and as we keep on saying, quality is a bit of an issue. So thanks to all the guys for bringing it up. Over to you, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I've really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed meeting the guys I haven't met before. Look, I think the future's positive. That there's always going to be sport in Australia. I think that the issue we have is, as Martin pointed out, is just making it attractive for people. But the major issue I see is the wages. We can attract them, but keeping them is really hard. Anyway, look, let's stay positive and see what we can do. Thanks, guys.
Just closing.
Martin's there.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite positive with what the AGCC and PGA are doing, and it's good. So I think we're heading in the right direction nationally in Australia anyway. For our turf education, turf management, and in regards to your apps that you're putting out, just if you can endorse the metric system, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. We're Turf Republic is working on a couple apps ourselves that we're going to release. We've got one that's coming out that has nothing to do with calculations that hopefully is going to be out here in about 2 weeks. And then we're working on some that will help actually turf managers manage things, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give it away too much, but we have with everything we've done that involves calculations, we have incorporated the metric system into that very easily with a nice little switch. So if there is anything, I know Nadeem, you sent me a couple apps. We've got your, and I don't have it in front of me, but your what was that app you asked? Yeah, we've got that app up on there. And what I try to do is when I put an app up that's specific to a region, if you noticed, I kind of put the Australian flag behind the logo so people understand what what region it's from. We're working on a different system to let people know basically where this app will work, because people are brutal sometimes. I've seen it with tech apps where the developer will specifically say this app will not work on an iPad, and somebody puts in a review, your app sucks because it doesn't work on an iPad. It's like, well, we told you it doesn't work on an iPad. So but anyway, that's where we're going with it. I appreciate it, and Martin, if there's any apps on there that we're missing or you'd like to see on there, let us know. We'd be glad to put them up for you.
Really well.
Nadeem?
Yeah, it's like I'll reiterate that with Bill. It's like there's a couple of other apps that I've been meaning to send to you, Bill, to put up on the App Store. But really do like the iTurf apps market. I did a talk on it where Bill actually came on for STAACT, which Bruce was a part of. So I hope a lot of people got out of that and the likes like that. And I will be mentioning it in a few other social media app talks that I'm doing around Australia in the next couple of months. But I just wanted to talk. There's a couple of events coming up in New South Wales. There's the Sports Turf Association, STA New South Wales, which myself and Frank are a part of. Our Wollongong seminar, that's on the 26th of August. If I remember correctly, down in Wollongong. You can just go to 26. You can just go to sportsturf.asn.au for all the information there. There's also, if anyone's watching this around Victoria, there's a TGAA Corowa biannual seminar on Wednesday the 21st of August, and then also the day after, which I'm going to be at, I'm flying to Adelaide, and there's a South Australian Golf Course Superintendents Association meeting as well. So there's a few bits and pieces on, so if anyone is listening out there, hope to see you around the place, but you can always get in touch with me through Twitter, at Campbell Turf, email, phone call, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, so many different ways. So again, thanks a lot for Frank and Bruce and Robin for you guys the first time on Turf Chat, and definitely another education episode down the track will be, I think will go down really well. Robin, I'll pass on to you.
All right, I guess it's just exciting to be involved in this hangout. It's just amazing to see technology in action, and it's the way the world's going, and I guess we just got to keep up with it. As far as the AGCSA is concerned, I think it's one of the most exciting things, with our new website coming online and possible app. And I think, as you say, Bill, and we've always said, there's a million good apps out there, and it'd be interesting to sit down and say what would be the perfect turf app, and pick the best bits out of every app and put it into one. I'm sure you've thought that many times, Bill. Or you're probably working on it right now. So the future is pretty exciting, actually, from that perspective, I think. Just one.
Robin, are you muted? Somehow something muted Robin.
Yeah, I don't see him muted, so there he is.
Am I back?
There you go. You're back now.
Don't you love technology? It just does its own thing. All right. Well, I'll sign out before it does it again.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Well, it's great to have you on. It is approaching about 8:15 here. We're calling it quits, and you guys are just getting going on your Friday. So good luck the rest of the day. Hopefully you have a productive day, end of your week, and you guys enjoy your weekend. And I'll let everybody know when we're up on the iTurf apps, on the iTunes store. The first podcast sometimes take a little bit, and we'll have episode 1 up as well as episode 2. And then Nadeem, if you want to send me links, and if any of you have any links in terms of anything we talked about tonight, please feel free to email them to me. We'll get them on there. So with that, we'll sign off with episode 2, and we'll see everybody on the next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.